The NFL season nearly upon us, kicking off Thursday night. Tampa Bay, can Dak and Dallas go and upset the Bucs opening night? Or is dominance in the cards for Tom Brady and the Bucs this upcoming season? Landon McCool, Locked On Cowboys. James Yarcho, Locked On Bucs, joins us here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Football season's back. Let's make the most of it. The best way to create your custom pool is runyourpool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Check them out today, and you'll get $10 off runyourpool.com/lockedon, or use your promo code LOCKEDON to check at checkout. Anywhere, everywhere in the world, Run Your Pool helps friends and colleagues compete against each other. And the NFL season starts September 9th. Start today, runyourpool.com/lockedon, and have your pool up and running in minutes. Runyourpool.com/lockedon. Also, I got to tell you about betonline.ag. The spread is already out for opening night, 7.5. We'll see which direction that moves. There's a key, subtraction from the Cowboys starting lineup, but it's that's that time of year again. We just had a great college football weekend, and then the NFL kicks off this week. BetOnline is your number one spot for all your pro and college football needs, betting needs, updated odds, props, contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest with the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Head over to the website and you'll get a 100% welcome bonus with your sign-up. They'll match you dollar for dollar. And be sure to take advantage of opening night super promo. Make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, season opener between the Bucs and the Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25. That's for new customers only when signing up using the promo code NFL100. And if BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, the NFL season officially kicks off Thursday night. Tampa, Tom Brady and the Bucs look to become the first repeat Super Bowl champion since, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots 17 years ago. To help us kind of ramp up the excitement for opening week, our guys from Locked On Bucs, it's James Yarcho, it's Landon McCool. They're here ready to talk about this game. And Landon, not to kind of slow things down with bad news for the boys, but I will start with you. Top offensive lineman Zach Martin ruled out already for testing positive for COVID-19. Is it naive to kind of think that Dak won't be running around like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl? Or how can Dallas potentially protect their franchise signal caller without Martin?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a very back and forth kind of feel for this injury report already in week one. We were actually waiting to see on Sunday whether La'el Collins would practice because he had been held out due to some stinger issue. We got great word that he's back and that Connor Williams, our left guard, is back, and then only to turn around and find out that Zach Martin is now tested positive. So he is actually in the protocol now. The only bright side here is that the Cowboys feel a lot more confident about their third offensive guard than they do about their third offensive tackle. Outside of that, I mean, losing potentially the best player on your team is never a good thing. I think that it may not be quite to the situation that Mahomes was experiencing in the Super Bowl, because that was just outrageous. But look, in a game that the Cowboys needed every single bit of talent to be there to kind of match up with, obviously what is a Super Bowl winner that is coming back with all their starters. It's a huge hit. There's just no way around it. Offensive guard is a position that can or cannot be super, indicating of how you're going to go and how the offensive line is going to go, depending on how the defensive interior of the opponent is. And the defensive interior of the Bucs is frightening. So I think for the Cowboys, they're hopeful because, like I said, they like the guy that they have as their backup there. They've been trying to figure out a way to either rotate him in as a starter or to figure out a way to make sure that he is the next guy on the field no matter what. And he's going to get a big test because, he's going to obviously be going up against Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, and that's quite a test for a young player who's only had, I think, 7 or 8 starts.
It is nightmare fuel for any offensive line, let alone one that's going to be undermanned. Landon McCool, of course, at McCoolBCB on Twitter. Locked On Cowboys co-host James Yarcho joins us as well at @JYarcho_Bucs. And James, Tom Brady's been very candid this offseason. I imagine he's going to probably get a little tighter lips as the regular season kicks off here. Dropped a couple Tom bombs saying football isn't taught well, and he had a bout with COVID after the big infamous Super Bowl parade. But Brady also said that this offense is light years from where it was last year. Is dominance kind of in the cards for this year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that started 7-5 and then went on that eight game run to finish out the season?
I think it certainly is. There's no question about it. You had Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski coming in last year with no true offseason, no preseason, kind of learning a very complex offense on the fly. You go back, I mean, and Bo, you know as well as anyone, you take a look at quarterbacks under Bruce Arians in their first year, they tend to struggle, and it's usually in their second year that they break out. Well, for the GOAT, it took a half of a year, and then he broke out in the second half. On top of that, you have Antonio Brown, who has been there for the entire offseason. He's been there for training camp. He now has a better understanding of the offense. Rob Gronkowski, same thing. He talked about recently that he understands the offense better. So you have all of these guys back in the same system. And, oh, by the way, Tom Brady has a fully healed, surgically repaired MCL because that was torn when he was out there winning a Super Bowl for the Buccaneers. So the sky is the limit for this offense. I really don't know what else to say about it. They could, very easily end up being the number one offense in the NFL. And with that additional game thrown in there, it would not shock me in the least if this team had 3 1,000-yard receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, with how potent this offense really is going to be.
The pro James Yarcho leading me into my next question, but I do have a little fun fact that between Carson Palmer and Jameis Winston, their 2 first seasons under Bruce Arians, 52 combined picks in their first seasons playing under Bruce Arians. That's a lot of interceptions. Tom Brady was able to kind of slow things down and put it together at the end of last season. So Landon, you starting off first. I mean, these offenses are absolutely stacked, even with Martin being out of the lineup on the offensive line. I mean, it's just a murderer's row. Wide receivers, they could potentially have 4 guys go over 1,000 yards if you include Zeke potentially on the ground. Make the case for the Dallas Cowboys having the better receiving core over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I mean, I think it's a tough case to make. I mean, I think, it's they're well, I mean, I think both groups have an incredible trio. And if you're going to talk about the best trios in football, I mean, I think we're looking at the 2 groups. I think for the Cowboys, I mean, if I'm making the case, maybe they're a little bit younger, a little bit, a little bit more upside there. I think Gallup is still developing. Lamb is obviously hasn't even cracked the surface yet. So we're going to see exactly what he's going to be like this year. I expect him to quickly ascend to the top 5 wide receivers in football. He's just that good. Cooper is Cooper. If he can stay healthy, I think he's maybe the best route runner in football. He finds a way to get open, and it's going to be even more difficult now because now, I mean, James talked about it, without the off season last year, without the ability to kind of meet and have training camp properly, they really had to kind of regiment these wide receivers into their roles, and there wasn't a lot of moving around these guys, especially for Lamb. They basically just stuck Lamb in the slot and let him run all his routes there. But now that they've had a training camp, they've had an opportunity to move these guys around a lot. We're going to see them deployed in different ways. We kind of, you mentioned the tight ends as well. I mean, we're talking about wide receivers, but I think both of these groups have incredible tight end depth too. I think Dalton Schultz was a guy that surprised a lot of people outside of the organization last year when Jarwin went down. I think he had 650 plus receiving yards. So you get Jarwin back, and you've got Schultz, and you've got Zeke, and you've got Pollard. I mean, if you want to talk about just number of skill players, it lines up similarly to what the Bucs have. But I don't know that's enough to necessarily say that the pass catching talent is quite on the same level as where the Bucs are. I think the Cowboys have the potential to be as good, if not better, than the Bucs. But that's not the same thing as being as good as or being as talented right now as where the Bucs are.
James, you want to add to that?
I mean, yeah, I was ready to go to war for the trio in Tampa, but I think Landon nailed it. I mean,
Yeah.
we are talking about the two best trios in the NFL. I don't think there's any question about it. I still put Tampa Bay at 1 and Dallas at 2. And like he said, CeeDee Lamb hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can accomplish. Michael Gallup is one of my favorite receivers to watch in the NFL, and I think there's more potential that can come out of him. But if we're talking about right now, today, the Bucs have the only receiver in NFL history to have 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. They have probably the most elite route runner we have seen in the last decade plus in Antonio Brown. And Chris Godwin is a more talented receiver than both Antonio Brown and Mike Evans. So, it's hard to tell what he can still accomplish. All three of these guys can move and line up anywhere on the field. It's what makes Tampa's offense so dangerous. And then, of course, both tight end rooms are absolutely phenomenal. Gronk, Cameron Brate, OJ Howard on the Tampa side. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing an incredible trio going for their second consecutive Super Bowl this year, whereas we're seeing another trio in Dallas that could be ascending to being one of the most prolific in the NFL over the course of the next 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I completely agree with both of you guys. Pros, no doubt about it. Is there any matchup, and we'll start with Landon here, that you're really looking at in this contest coming up Thursday night to kick off the season that's going to have you intrigued to start the season?
Well, I mean, there's tons. I mean, there's just so much talent on both of these offenses. I think obviously where Dallas may be able to, kind of keep up with Tampa Bay talent-wise on the offense, the defense is a completely different story. But Dallas is in a season of change and a new defensive coordinator, a whole bunch of new personnel. Do I wish that their first test was against the Tampa Bay Bucs and Tom Brady? I do not. But I think I'm intrigued by almost all of the defense against the Bucs because I'm interested to see, to throw them in the fire and see what they've got. I think it's going to be, obviously last year for the Cowboys, the defense was an Achilles heel, to put it kindly. I think that there has been a ton of change on that side of the ball. It's really hard to anticipate exactly what you're going to get from them. So just getting a chance to kind of test themselves against again, not ideal as that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, but it gets a chance to test themselves against another offense and kind of see what you have there is going to be really interesting and kind of eye-opening. Hopefully not too eye-opening. And I think that's really what I'm looking for, is seeing, guys like Micah Parsons play their first few snaps and how the defense looks different, just in how it's deployed differently versus last year. I'm sure we'll talk about all the marquee matchups and all the the wide receivers and all the passing and big numbers that's going to happen on offense. But for me, I think I'm just excited to see exactly what the difference is between last year and this year in this defense, just because that's the spot where there's been the most change.
James, any matchup you're looking forward to most?
I'm also looking on the defensive side of the ball, and it goes back to Zach Martin not being available. I'm looking to see what kind of blitzes Todd Bowles dials up. And I actually just said on today's episode of Locked On Bucs podcast, I feel bad for Dak Prescott. I really do. He suffered one of the most gruesome injuries I can remember, and now he's having to go up against this pass rush without his best offensive lineman. I think it's a really tall task. And Landon, again, he laid it out perfectly. This is, the interior of the Bucs defense is so good. Having to line up against Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. Oh, by the way, Todd Bowles will also send Levante David and Devin White on blitzes. Oh, he'll send Antoine Winfield Jr. too. Oh, and the Bucs drafted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka with the 32nd pick, which he had no business being there. And he'll probably get on the field with JPP and Shaq Barrett and have all three of them going after Dak Prescott. I'm really interested to see what kind of blitzes, what kind of coverages Todd Bowles decides to roll out with all these pieces, and having another year in the defense for someone like Antoine Winfield Jr., he could emerge as the best safety in the league.
Yeah. I've got 160 million reasons why I'm not feeling bad for Dak Prescott these days. But it's going to be a great matchup. And you've got to be locked in, of course, to Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Bucs all week. You guys even have a crossover episode coming up later this week where you guys are going to really mix it up and dive in on this. Can't wait for that. It's running it back versus the bounce back with these two teams. Can't wait for it, guys. Enjoy it Thursday night. Thanks for joining us here on the Locked On NFL podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much.